everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm excited to be doing another fall themed video. I've already done one so far for this season, and that video was of course my most anticipated fall releases, but today I'm going to be talking through the books I hopefully will try to read this fall, this season. As you guys know, and as I often mention, I love a list. I love a seasonal list. I love a monthly list. I am just a list maker. It brings me a lot of joy, and so making a seasonal TBR is really great because I feel like I can really focus in on the genres and the mood I'm kind of looking for over the next few months. And definitely the mood for this month is dark, eerie, spooky, mystery, drama, angst, if you will. And honestly, from the thumbnail, you might have been able to see some of them are super long. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in to the top 5 books I hope to read this fall. First one is honestly feels perfect for the season, and I'm glad I just didn't get to it earlier in the year because it feels great for fall. And that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a very much a whodunit style of story. I believe it's like highly complicated and like very intricate of a mystery. I really do like mysteries as long as they're not too scary because I'm a bit of a wimp, but I love atmosphere a lot. Dark atmosphere and a lot of just like intrigue, if you will. And I particularly like kind of a very classic Clue style, Agatha Christie style, whodunit style of story. So I'm really hoping that this kind of provides those kind of feelings. Also, there's a new like whodunit Clue-inspired movie coming out, I think around Thanksgiving, and that really inspired me to try to pick up this book particularly. But this basically takes place on a manor, and essentially this blurb sold me for this book. I don't really want to know too much going in because of the fact that it's at its core a mystery, but it says, "The rules of Blackheath. Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There are 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once. You tell us the name of the killer. Understood. Now let's begin." So again, very classic in its setup, but it does appear like we perhaps might be possessing in some way each witness to this crime. So that seems very intriguing and might provide some interesting POVs, but I just feel like this is a perfect book to read this fall, so I'm excited to have it. It also just fits the atmosphere perfectly, and that is The Modern Fairy Tales by Holly Black. I have been meaning to read and planning to read this month, hopefully, the first book to this trilogy, which is Tithe. This is a really classic YA fae-centered fantasy story. I really love fae fantasy. I particularly love Holly Black's rendition of these stories. They're always really dark and atmospheric and full of lots of ink, so I anticipate them being really easy, fast reads. Who knows, I might be able to read more than one book in this trilogy, but my overall goal is to read at least one. I also really love the repackaging of this that they did, and I love that it's like one big book. I don't really know too much about this going in, except I've read like 40 pages and it kind of has the traditional YA setup of, you know, girl unexpectedly runs into a hot fae, their worlds collide, yada yada yada. Something intriguing about this series though is that apparently a lot of the characters within this like show up in her other books set in the fae world, because I think it's like the same universe. That intrigues me as a fantasy lover. I love when there's like crossover and universe ties. It's just something that I find to be incredibly clever, no matter how many times I come across it. Next book should be no surprise, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I have been going on and on and on about how excited I am for the 4th illustrated novel of this to come out, and how I've been rereading these books in anticipation of the release of the illustrated edition of the 4th novel. I do plan on continuing on my reread past the illustrated edition, so 5, 6, and 7 will also hopefully be read this year, but I'm particularly excited about rereading number 4. I honestly don't remember the last time I reread this one. I often read the first 3 and the last 2 the most, perhaps 5 as well. I just skip 4 a lot. I watch the 4th movie a lot, but I don't reread it a lot. But due to that, I think reading it and watching the movie again is going to be so much fun. I've been loving my reread of Harry Potter this year. It has been giving me all the nostalgic feels. I get so emotional in these stories still. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be bored of Harry Potter. I hope I never am, because that just sounds sad. So glad to be doing this, glad to be in this world always. So yeah, this is a definite must. Gonna happen. Can't wait to read it. Next up is a new release of the season, and that is Serpent and Dove. This was one of my most anticipated books. It was on my radar. It's in my fall release like video where I talk about books coming out. But this is like skyrocketed to the top of my list for a couple of reasons. One, the reviews that are coming out for this right now are so strong, like so strong, like a 4 on Goodreads or something ridiculous like that. And two, it is apparently super angsty. And if you guys have been watching my videos recently, that has been like the formula of success for my life. I just have been craving angsty stories and I cannot stop reading them. This particularly has a very interesting setup in that it's set in a world where witches exist and witch hunters exist, and they have been fighting this, you know, battle against each other for hundreds of years. This story is set up where a witch and a witch hunter have to get married and they hate each other. And we all know how that's gonna work out, and I can't wait to see it happen. But yes, this book has lots of buzz, lots of interest. I'm super intrigued to see how I feel about it, so I definitely feel like I'll be picking this up over the next couple of months. It just sounds so entertaining, to be honest. I also hear like some people describe it as like entertaining as early Throne of Glass like era, which we all know how I feel about that era. That was like my early booktube channel, was just me talking about early Throne of Glass era. So yeah, pumped for this. And the very last book on my TBR is very ambitious, but honestly, it feels right. Like I looked at it and I'm like, I think I'm ready to read this now. And obviously I'm no stranger to a long book, and I think this would also be great for my commute. But I'm talking about Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is a hunk of a book, but a very famous dark fantasy historical setting novel. I think it's set in like the Victorian era, particularly. The dawn of the 19th century with the Napoleonic Wars raging on land and sea. Most people believe magic to be long dead in England. But that is not the case. This is obviously a super famous, very popular story. I also am a sucker for this time period in England. I love a dark, dreary London setting with gentlemen and ladies going about their days with magic thrown in there. I'm so intrigued. I haven't seen any of the adaptations for this story because I've always wanted to read it first. And it just feels, again, like it just feels right. I feel like it's perfect. Fall is happening. I feel like with a candle, with some pumpkins, with some good jams, this book will just be so much fun to read. And it's truly not that crazy long. I think it's like 900. It's about 1,000 pages. And again, like I have read some long books in my days, right? Like this is well over 1,000 pages and I loved every second of it. So I feel like I should be able to tackle this and really enjoy this novel. Alrighty guys, those are the top 5 books I hope to read this fall. Let me know down below some books you really hope to get to this season, as I would love to know. And I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye.